Hi there, everybody. It's 9 o'clock. See if that video is working. Yeah, hopefully that's the tech all working okay. Can you give me a quick why in the chat box, just if you can see the slide underneath this video bit and you can see me and hear my voice? That'd be really cool, just so I know. There's a chat box over there somewhere. It is on my screen anyway. Okay, thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Michael. Cool. Excellent. Well, my name's Dave Gerrish. I don't know if I even said that yesterday, but I've been an IT contractor for about 22 years now. So yeah, I really want to welcome you here this evening. And this is the second of three live sessions. So the next one will be, the final one will be tomorrow night. And you found the chat box, some of you already, so that way actually. And so feel free to dump any questions in there you've got throughout this evening, but I'm hopefully only going to keep you for about 15 minutes only, something like that, with a little Q&A afterwards if anyone wants it. So without further ado, I'll close the video and I'll crack on with the slides. You'll see that okay? Right, that's hopefully good for you. Okay, so 10 reasons why you're not an IT contractor yet. And I did 3 last night, like I said. I'm going to do 3 tonight, and then I'll cover 4 more tomorrow. Yeah, that does add up to 10. So a quick recap of last night. So the first reason that might be stopping you is the permie paralysis, that I call it. So it's that idea of being stuck where you are, not being able to move forward. The second one is contracting concerns. So that's definitely something I had when I was starting out. They were genuine questions. I genuinely needed to know more about what contracting was and how to go about it before I sort of jumped into it. And then the third reason was the sort of overly optimistic type people. So people that generally think the grass is greener where you are, so they want to stay put. So let's move on to tonight's 3. So number 4, I've got down as lack of knowledge. So what do I mean by that? Well, some of the topics in here I'll quickly go over is, well, for me, it was like, how does contracting actually work? So speaking from, personal experience, literally, one of the reasons that really did stop me was not knowing what it was all about. So you may want to understand what contracting is all about. Why do companies use contractors? Why they're going to choose you, and also you want sort of like a balanced view of the pros and cons of contracting, which you don't always get in these sort of situations. And it doesn't mean you're negative in any way. I talked about negativity last night, I think, and mindset, but you just don't know this stuff and you want to know it, which I think is perfectly reasonable and valid. And you just got to be careful though, because sometimes you can use that like an excuse. Yeah. So you can justify it to yourself, the fact that you're not going contracting. So obviously in a 15-minute session, I can't go into all the details about how the whole thing of contracting works. And, I've got a video course where I go into more detail in that. And I've even got like a online 7-week live coaching program. And I've got a whole module. So it's like a whole session, hour-and-a-half session dedicated to the mechanics of contracting, so how it all works. But let's move on to the next point. So company structure. So what do I mean by that? I mean, what are the different vehicles to go IT contracting through? So most of you will know that there's limited companies and umbrella companies. So, but it's really understanding the differences between those two, and you don't want to get bogged down by those sort of things and make that be the thing that stops you becoming a contractor, because all these problems can be surpassed and understood. Another thing that I know gets some people sort of in a bit of a tears is all this idea of directors and shareholders and all that sort of stuff. Well, obviously it doesn't need to be. It's just a lack of knowledge. So you just got to acknowledge that. And the final one on this section is the whole idea of finances and accounting. That can really freak people out. So loads of people get really overwhelmed when you talk about any form of money or finances, and especially when you start throwing in accountancy. It's not the most glamorous sounding thing, but just that whole thing of feeling that they need to know it all. And of course you don't need to know it all, but you do have this fear of the unknown. And some people, you know, genuinely do have a fear of the numbers, you know, and a fear of all the terms involved with, you know, finances and accounting as a contractor. So whether that's like corporation tax, VAT, PAYE, NI, all those sort of things, you know, quarterly reports, all these things can sort of freak you out before you're a contractor. And you don't want, again, something like that stopping you. So yeah, just give me a quick why in the chat box if any of those things you feel now that you need to know a bit more information about, you know, which is perfectly valid. It doesn't mean it's going to stop you. It just means you want to know a bit more. That's what I did when I was going contracting back in 1993. Good stuff. Excuse me, just having a slurp of water. So yeah, definitely more about how IT contracting works, Stephen says. Yeah, so that was the big thing for me. I wasn't freaked out by company structure. I didn't really, you know, understood that accountants would deal with most of my finances and accounting, you know, and it really was the whole thing of how does the whole process work end to end. So perfectly valid questions. Let's move on to number 5. So lack of skills or experience. Now, these top 10 tips, I asked all the people that joined my IT Contracting Academy Facebook group what their biggest things stopping them were. So I already had an idea of the things that stopped me going contracting, but I wanted to ask you guys, and it was interesting to see which things came up, you know, more frequently than other stuff. And of course, some things came up that I hadn't even thought about. But lack of skills or experience was definitely a big one. So you might be saying to yourself, you know, I don't have the right skills. Well, that might just mean you don't have the right skills yet, you know, but let me just, you know, flip it round to you and sort of say, what, you've got enough skills for your current job now, but you don't have enough skills to go contracting in the future. Just, you know, see the difference there, and why is there a difference? And ask yourself, are you ever going to have the right skills, the perfect set of skills? There's no such thing as perfection, remember. You know, it's an unattainable thing. So what skills do you think you need? So again, don't get bogged down in this whole idea of this sort of perfectionist idea of you can't go contracting because you've got to have this perfect CV with this perfect set of skills, because that person doesn't exist. Let me tell you that. You know, I've been doing this 22 years. And JobServe will soon tell you in 5 minutes if you've got the right skills to be a contractor or not. Okay? Now, that seems obvious to me that, you know, you can go straight onto JobServe and find the contracts out there matching your skills. You don't have to have all those skills. You don't have to be the perfect candidate. Another big one, a part of this is, you know, as well as skills, you don't have enough experience. So that's an embarrassing. My first ever picture as a baby back in 1969. You can tell I'm old. Black and white picture. So you don't have enough experience again yet. So the same question, will you ever have enough experience? You know, and what experience is the right amount? Ask yourself those questions, you know, and it's true that, you know, some experience is beneficial, of course. You know, someone asked last night about, you know, getting a perm job first, and I think that's definitely valid. Most people do have a perm job and then go into contracting rather than just jumping straight from college or school or whatever straight into contracting. Doesn't mean you say you can't do it, but generally you will build on something you have worked in and you actually like. There's a bit of passion there. You actually, you know, enjoy that bit of work. But don't let it be your excuse for not trying to go contracting. And lots of people, you know, they assume a hiring manager wants tons and tons of experience, you know, but you've got to realize they might value many other personality traits just as highly. You know, for example, drive, passion, enthusiasm, eagerness to learn, all those things and more. You know, I got, personally speaking, you know, I got a contract myself to build a brand new enterprise monitoring system, because that's my sort of niche, my area, back in 2002, I think it was. And I'd never done it before. I'd never built a system like that ever before. And they knew I'd never built a system like that ever before. But they saw something in me that told them I could do it. Okay, so it's not all about the experience. Okay, so the last one on this slide is I don't have X, and that's a picture of a negative there, because basically what I'm trying to say is, you know, are there areas in your life where you sort of have this sort of lack mindset? I talked about mindset last night being really important when you're going to become a contractor, and definitely when you are a contractor. So do you have this idea of lacking in certain things? You don't have X, Y, Z, you know, and be honest with yourself. Are you a bit of a negative Nancy? Why not try? Why not try and do it? You know, if you don't have the skills, if you don't have the experience, the universe is soon going to let you know. You know, and turn it round again, flip it, and think, you know, what do you have? You know, could you be more positive in this sort of situation? And you know, what if something doesn't quite go right? You can use knockbacks as feedback. What you don't want to do is take one negative experience, whatever that is, as proof you can't become a contractor. You want to turn it around and use it as fire, yeah, fire to fuel your desire, you know, to succeed as a contractor. And that's this big mindset piece I talk about quite a bit. So yeah, give me a quick why in the chat box if you feel sometimes, you know, that you don't have some of those things. You don't have the right skills, you don't have enough experience, or you don't have something. While I just grab another sip of water. Good stuff. Okay. Let me move on to number 6. So this is one that hadn't even thought of, and it actually came up because I think it was a guy on the first course that I did was in this sort of situation, and I think also someone in the Facebook group was in this sort of situation. So you might need a visa to work here in the UK, for example, and you know that could be a visa, it could be a work permit, whatever is legally required for you to be able to work, you know, in a given location. And I'm talking about UK at the moment, for example. So you know, there might be visa requirements, you know, if you live overseas, for example. So if you live overseas in someone like India, which, you know, I get a lot of people in the group from places like India. I've got lots of friends who've lived in India and come over from India. You know, there will be certain visa requirements to be able to work over here. And, you know, that was like my friend Gaurav, who I'll tell you about another time. You know, he came over from India and we had to go through a certain process to make sure he had a certain visa. Or maybe you live here and you work here now, but your visa or your permit is tied to your current, perhaps, you know, like perm role. So this is how, you know, visas, lack of visas or work permits can come into play. The other situation is you need to get a visa to go and work somewhere else. So for example, that's my Indian visa, for example. So I went and worked for India just for a few weeks, but I needed a visa to work there. Now, luckily, you know, the company I was working with, I was working for them out in India, so they facilitated the whole thing of getting me the visa. But another example where I didn't have a company helping me was, you know, I went and worked in Australia for 2 separate occasions, I think it was. So on my first time there, I got a working holiday visa, which was for a year. And the second time I then went in on a business visa. So the crucial thing here is you need to find out how it works and how it affects you. You know, you need to ask people, you need to understand it and learn that, okay? Because I can't cover everything, obviously. So someone else's visa, this is what I touched on earlier. I'd seen the problem of, you know, guys in India wanting to come over here and work, and this whole lack of visa, and is it tied to the job? Is the job going to provide a visa? That sort of thing. And I knew about me working elsewhere like Australia, but this is the one that a guy on the course and a guy in the Facebook group, I think, had touched on, that reminded me of this, was when it's a visa for a spouse or a partner that is affecting you going contracting, something I'd never even thought about. I'd never heard it before. So, you know, so for example, it could be that you've got a partner who's here on a visa and it's based on you having a perm job, you know, like a nice steady income. And despite the fact that if you were contracting, you might be able to earn double your money, for example, or whatever, you know, 500 quid a day, or whatever it is for your niche. The bodies in question, the visa people, these government organisations, whoever they are, they just don't get it, and you can't explain it to them. They don't seem to get it. You know, it's 2018 and they still don't understand this way of working, and you know, they might demand things like 2 years worth of accounts, and of course, if you've just started out, you're not going to have 2 years worth of accounts, and they want to see evidence of salary, income for the last couple of years or whatever, and it's basically that sort of computer says no bureaucracy, you know. So I'd never heard of this before myself, but that is something that does and can hold people back from going contracting. Stephen says you might need a visa to work outside the UK in the very near future. Yeah, Brexit. Yeah, definitely. You might do. But then I sort of think, well, there's lots of countries I've worked in where I needed to get a work permit anyway. So I couldn't remember which ones were part of Europe and which ones weren't. So yeah, but no, I get your point. But it's not unsurmountable, you know. You can deal with it and sort it out. You know, the agency that you deal with should have information on that, but basically you can find that information out and see whether it is a viable option to go and work in those countries, you know. And Daniel, sorry, just picking up some of the questions while I'm looking at the chat box. Yeah, I've been told many times I don't have the right level of experience. Yeah, I don't know if that's what, if you've been in a job 6 months or something like that, or if you've been in a job a couple of years or something like that, I don't see how you can not have experience. You must have a decent amount of experience. Obviously, it depends on the role, whether you've got the right level of experience. If you're going for a job where they want some sort of senior DBA and you're going in there as quite a newbie DBA who can work as a part of a team, then that's different to someone going in and being the lead DBA on a project, you know, involving rack clusters and blah, 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 whatever. Yeah, so I've been in the same sort of situation where I can join a project where I'm one of 8 people and I can tick along fine. I did that in Australia. When I came back to the UK, they wanted one person, the job I talked about earlier, to build a brand new monitoring system on their own. Now, I didn't have experience to do that. I had experience of working in a team of 6 or 7 on a system, which we all know is completely different from you're the one, the buck stops with you, you've got to build it, you've got to talk to all the stakeholders, you've got to deal with management, and you've got to deliver it. There's a lot more pressure on you, but I got the job. So yeah, that is a tricky one though. But yeah, give me a why in the chat box if any of those sort of things have affected you before. I mean, I don't expect there's, you know, many of you maybe, but it was just something I heard on the last course I did and in the Facebook group, that this is a valid reason that does stop people going contracting either in the UK or elsewhere, and something, especially the last one, being tied to someone else's visa. Never heard of that before. Right, good stuff. So that's the 3 main points. I'll just go over those quickly now. So the first one was, so number 4 was lack of knowledge, you know, a genuine gap in understanding about how contracting works. Number 5 was a lack of skills or a lack of experience. And what you've got to really take away from this, hopefully, is that lack of skills or lack of experience real, or is it a perceived lack on your side, in your mindset? And then the last one was the lack of visa or work permit. And again, you've got to work out, is that a real situation? Is it a real blockage that can't be surpassed? Or is it, you know, a situation that can be solved quite easily? So yeah, just I mentioned last night, if you search on Facebook, IT Contractor, it'd be really good if you could like my page. That's good. It helps get my reach out to more people. And I've also got the Facebook group. Some of you are already in the Facebook group, so I know you're already in there and discussing things. You see things in that group a bit more, a bit faster than anywhere else, because that's the first place I put, like, if I see any new job opportunities, contracts that I hear about, I chuck a quick post in there. So, and you can tag me in there if you want to ask me anything specific, then please go ahead. But that's it for this evening. If you've got any other questions, give me a shout. I'll give it a couple of minutes. Otherwise, I will see you guys. Let me just scroll back. There were a few comments. Yeah, that's it, I think. But so hopefully I'll see the rest of you. There are 4 more things I want to go over tomorrow for the final 4, 9 o'clock tomorrow evening. If there's no more questions, I'll say good night, have a good evening, and I shall catch you soon. All the best. Cheers, guys. Cheers, Neil. Cheers, Michael.